Hello out there, and it is first look time with this new Spyderco Polestar. Just released, I just got it in the mail, and it is one that I've been really interested in since the first time that I heard about it, because it is the second Spyderco knife for 2017 to be released with the economic folder designation. All right, so this is one of their Chinese-made budget knives. The first one was the Efficient, and I purchased that, talked about that, really liked that one, gave it a really good recommendation, I think. And this one was just a little bit curious to me because it's a design that I was really familiar with the first time I saw it, and I just wasn't sure why Spyderco would be making this knife at this point, because I have a knife that's really similar to it, the Byrd Raven 2, which I love. Because of the way that I use this in my life. This has a very specific job that I use it for all the time, and I will link to a video about it down below. It's one of my earlier videos. And when I talked about the Raven 2, I talked about how many properties it shared with the Tenacious. So, I just couldn't understand really when I was thinking about it why you would have three knives that had a lot of the same properties and characteristics. Well, when I unboxed the Polestar, I took a look at this product and information and warranty guide, because Spyderco is really cool in a lot of ways, but one of those ways is that they send you this information about the knife that you get and give you a lot of background detail that a lot of companies don't let you just have off the bat. Spyderco gives you a little bit of insight, which is really cool. And so this has some of the information about the development of the design, and then also the materials used, and just some other background. And what that really amounts to is that this Polestar is actually based off of the Raven 2, which in Spyderco terms is a very unique thing, because what usually happens on the Byrd lines is that a Spyderco knife will be very popular, and then a Byrd model will be designed after that in order to, capitalize on a good design, but to make it more economical with more budget materials. Well, in this case, the knives sort of went the other way around, and they had a really nice design with the Raven 2 and wanted to make a full-fledged Spyderco out of it. And they decided to keep it a budget Spyderco, which is fine, but it definitely explains why you have two knives that share the same look and the same function and almost the same price point. So this video, while it is a first look video, is actually sort of going to be a comparison video, because it really makes sense to me to keep this Raven 2 on the table and sort of go over some of the changes and upgrades that were made in order to create the Polestar. So starting with the basic structure and the design, the steel is the same for these two knives. We have CTS BD1, right? And BD1 is a Carpenter-made, American-made steel that I really like as a user steel, and is really good on knives that you're gonna beat up. I've enjoyed it, obviously, on the Raven 2. A couple other knives that I've had it with were the lightweight Manix 2 that I used to own, and then also the CRKT No Time Off, which is another really good user knife. So a steel that I really like a lot for those kind of applications. It's a vacuum melted steel, so really good structure in terms of being stable. Edge retention is pretty good, a little bit better than 8CR13 MOV, but it still touches up and resharpens well. So I don't have any issues at all with the steel. Like it a lot. All right. So one other big difference, well, one actual big difference, since the steel is the same, is the blade length. And you can see with these knives lined up that although the overall length is identical, the cutting edge is different. Right, so here on the Polestar you have a cutting edge that's over 3 inches at around 3 1/4, and the Raven 2 is sub 3 inches, and that's because of this forward choil that you have on the Raven 2, but you don't on the Polestar. And I'm all for taking the choil out and getting more use out of your entire blade and cutting edge, as long as the ergos aren't really affected. And the good news when we get to the ergos is that they're still really good on the Polestar. So definitely that's an upgrade. Other things in terms of structure, if we're looking at these knives side by side, is you can see that even though they're about the same width, the width is in different areas. The liners are a lot thicker on the Raven 2, and the G10 is thicker on the Polestar. So that's going to cut a little bit of weight. And then also when you're looking at the blade stock, let me see if I can get that closer and maybe a little focused. There we go. When we're looking at the blade stock, you can see how much thicker the Raven 2 is to the Polestar. And the Polestar has more of a tenacious level of thickness. So when we're talking about weight, it is going to be slightly reduced for the Polestar. And I'll actually grab the scale right now, making a lot of cling and clatter on the table, but no worries. So 4.14 ounces for the Raven 2, which is perfectly functional for what it's used for, but 3.86 on the Polestar, 3.85. So I really like that weight for the size of the knife. It feels pretty darn good. So a little bit of difference there. And let's get back to it. So other information about the blade is the jimping is different on these two knives. So let's get them back close to the camera and take a look at that. The jimping on the Raven 2 was a disappointment to say the least. It's very, very flat, not grippy at all. And you can't really notice it that much on camera, but it is a lot grippier on the Polestar. All right, so if you have a tenacious or a persistence, the jimping on the Polestar is more reminiscent of that. It's actually functional and usable. It is definitely not on the level of a Delica 4, which I'll bring in real quick and take a look at. So it's not that sharp, and it doesn't catch your thumb that well, and definitely doesn't catch your thumb the way the paramilitary jimping does, but it's still pretty good. Okay, and moving on from the blade, let's talk about the coolest aspect of this knife. The number one neatest, best thing is without a doubt the G10. The G10 is just really neat. I mean, looking at it, it's extremely attractive. What it is a peel ply G10, and peel ply is nothing new. It's nothing that hasn't been done before. It's used on G10, it's used on carbon fiber, and basically it's a process where when the G10 or the carbon fiber is cooling, you have like a layer on top that cools with it, and then that layer is peeled off and creates the traction and the grip that you're used to. Well, with this, it's a mesh layer, and the mesh is like a checkerboard kind of pattern, and so it gives the G10 a really unique look and feel. It's almost like a plaid type of feel if you look really close and look. But it's very grippy and very functional, and like I said, extremely attractive. And the thing that's most neat about it is that when you look at it from different angles, it looks different colors. There's definitely a gray, and I mean it's called gray, but when you look at it at certain angles, it might look a little bit blue. And when you look at it up close or from the side, you see a little bit of light gray or green, almost like a natural G10 color on the sides, where you don't have that checker pattern. So it's just really, really neat. And it's something that I think even if we do not see this knife become a success, I think that Spyderco will definitely use this kind of design on its G10 again, because I think it should be a hit. I mean, it's just definitely a good selling point in my opinion. Other stuff about the knife, obviously we want to talk about the ergonomics. Ergonomically, really comfortable. I talked about the jimping. Obviously you know about the G10 being very good. No forward choil, but what you do have is a nice finger guard here that keeps you from slipping up. So while you don't have the multiple grip configurations that maybe the Raven would allow, like this and like this, you know, you still are able to get a really comfortable purchase with full use of this extended cutting edge. So really good there. And what I did mess around with for a little bit today was choking up like this and seeing if that would be comfortable. And it is. I mean, it's not great, but it'd be functional if you did need to choke up a little bit further. And if you didn't want to hold the knife this far up, you could actually go farther back and still be comfortable and still have use of that cutting edge. So a little bit of versatility there. There is some milling. We already talked about the weight, but you can see that some weight has been cut out by the liners being milled pretty well. 4-position pocket clip, as you can expect, and a really nice lanyard tube, which I will probably be using, actually. I haven't been using very often on knives, but I think I'll put a lanyard on this one. Lockup, as you can see, pretty good on the liner lock. No movement whatsoever. Centering is on point, and the action is pretty good, but it's not great. And I know it sounded really good there, but it's just starting to break in now. It hasn't been perfectly smooth, and it hasn't snapped open really quickly the way you would want it to, but it's definitely getting there, and it's on its way. And that sort of brings me to the last upgrade between the Raven 2 and this Polestar, is the Raven 2 is running on Teflon washers. And let's see if we can see them. Well, Teflon on the Raven 2. Yeah, it's in there. There we go. And bronze on this Polestar. And I don't know that you're going to be able to see them in there, but they're definitely there. And so I'm expecting this knife to definitely break in and be really quick and smooth to open. And if I have to end up adjusting the pivot screw, I will, but no worries there. I'm sure this knife is going to be exactly what I want it to be in terms of action. So overall, I mean, when we're looking at price, this is a $60 knife. So it is part of the economical line, the budget line, but it's not inexpensive, you know. So you do have to understand that it is cheaper than a lot of Spydercos, but you are still going to pay a decent amount of money for it. But I think that it's a pretty good investment for a knife that looks a little bit different than a lot of knives you probably have, and is still going to be a very good user blade. So I'm comfortable with that amount of money. The Raven 2 was at a $50 price point right around, and I would definitely say that this knife is worth $10 more than that. So I feel good about the value there, but obviously I'll follow up if something changes. Would really like to see in the future maybe some sprint runs with some upgraded steel and other materials, or maybe some other colors in this G10, because I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and a lot of opportunity for Spyderco to continue with this design and just make more and more variations in different knives, because it's just a really good functional type of EDC knife that really won't ever get old. So I know it was a little bit long for a first look, but hopefully you got a lot of good information out of it. Thanks for watching. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, certainly let me know in the feedback area down below. But I really do appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking with you soon with more knife stuff. Take care.